What's up everyone, Tony here, and welcome to episode 2 of SSG Network's Road to E3 2019 video series. Today we'll be diving deep into a topic on the tip of everyone's tongue in the gaming world: the next generation of consoles. It's 2019 and we're still at least a year away from the actual launch of new consoles, but I believe this E3 will give us a very solid taste of the next generation. For a moment, let's rewind back to E3 2012. There was a game revealed that year that really stood out above the rest, and that game was Watch Dogs. That Watch Dogs gameplay reveal was basically our first official glimpse at a true next-gen experience, and at the time, the PS4 and Xbox One weren't even officially announced. Nonetheless, it was clear to a lot of people watching that footage that we were looking at a next-generation game, and lo and behold, the PS4 and Xbox One were revealed almost a year later in early 2013, and only then was Watch Dogs officially announced as a next-gen title. I think E3 2019 will be much like E3 2012. Not only will we hear a lot of talk about the next generation, but we'll probably get our first real look at a next-gen game or two, even if it's not explicitly confirmed to be a next-gen release. So let's quickly go over everything we know about the next generation consoles from Sony and Microsoft. We'll also get into some leak discussion, and of course, I'll sprinkle in some of my personal thoughts and predictions as we head forward into a brand new generation. Let's not waste any more time and get right into it. We should begin by talking about what we know for a fact, which is surprisingly a lot. Most of this concrete information comes directly from Sony. Calling them the market leader would be underselling the situation. The PS4 has absolutely dominated the current console generation, and as a result, it almost feels like Sony is just kind of winging it when it comes to their marketing. For the first time ever here in 2019, Sony will not be present at E3 with a traditional press conference. This has led some to speculate that Sony just doesn't have enough bombshells to drop here in 2019, and that's why they've decided to sit the year out. However, judging from some of the absolute megaton announcements they've made recently, that's obviously not the case. Just this week, Hideo Kojima came out of nowhere and released a brand spanking new trailer for Death Stranding, along with a shocking November 2019 release date. That definitely could have been a Sony E3 press conference megaton, but instead it was just kinda dropped onto Sony's YouTube out of nowhere. I've always loved the grandeur of an E3 press conference, and the MGS2 trailer from E3 2000 is still to this day one of the greatest trailers ever. It stood out so far above the rest of the games at that show that Konami decided to release the thing on DVD. An entire DVD just for one trailer. But boy was it worth it. I think there are few ways to generate excitement for a new game better than at an E3 press conference, as the audience blows the roof off the place with applause. But hey, when you move damn near 100 million consoles in a single generation, you can pretty much announce whatever you want whenever you want, and the world is gonna be there. I know this because I was watching that trailer for Death Stranding on YouTube with about 6 million others, and getting mad hype while doing it. I think Sony pushed that theory to its absolute limit back in April of 2019, when they decided to reveal the first details of their next generation console, not through a giant event with all the press invited, not through a hype live stream, and not even through a pre-recorded video. We learned the first official news regarding PlayStation 5 in text form from an exclusive article by Wired.com. Okay. Obviously, no one saw this coming, and the news took the video game world by storm. As we head into an E3 that will likely give us a solid glimpse at the next generation, I think it only makes sense to summarize that article, hone in on those specs, and add a bit of audio and video so we could paint a clearer picture of the next generation of games. The PS5 will use a 7nm 8-core AMD Zen 2 CPU based on the all-new 3rd gen Ryzen. If that sounds like gibberish to you, let me sum it up. This Ryzen CPU is top of the line, and here's why that matters. Believe it or not, when the specs for the PS4 and Xbox One were first revealed, it was the CPU, even at the time, that acted as a bottleneck compared to the other parts of each machine. There will be no CPU bottleneck here with PS5 thanks to Ryzen, and that's pretty exciting. If you need help visualizing it, the jump from PS3 CPU to PS4s is not as large as the jump from PS4s to PS5s when it comes to power. This is a legit huge leap forward here when it comes to console CPU tech. Some of the other specs revealed in the Wired article include a, quote, custom AMD unit for 3D audio, which sounds pretty cool and is supposedly a huge leap forward for audio in games. Next, they mentioned PS5 having 8K support, and that might sound insane now, but remember, 4K seemed insane back when PS4 and Xbox One were revealed, and here we are now playing the new Red Dead Redemption in 4K. A mid-cycle upgraded PS5 or Xbox Anaconda released in like 2023 might actually be able to spit out AAA games at 8K. Again, it sounds crazy, but you never know. The PS5 will also support the current PSVR in addition to a new VR platform, which is good news for VR fans. I personally have trouble with motion sickness whenever I use my PSVR, so I'm hoping this next-gen VR on PS5 solves some of those issues if that's even possible. Finally, the article confirmed that the console will use physical media, and it's set for a release in 2020. Both things I think a lot of us assumed, but it's nice to have them confirmed by Sony directly. Now there's 3 more major points from this article that I'm going to go a little deeper into, because I think it's these 3 specs in particular that have the potential to define the look, the feel, and the business of next generation games. The first, of course, is ray tracing. Probably the hottest buzzword in the gaming industry today. I am personally a big believer in ray tracing, and as someone who owns an RTX 2080, I've actually been able to play a couple of games all the way through with ray tracing enabled. So before even reading this article and learning all the juicy specs of the PS5, I already kind of felt like ray tracing was something that could provide a true generational leap when it comes to game visuals. So it was pretty amazing to read that Wired article and get confirmation that PS5 will rock a custom AMD Navi GPU with ray tracing support. I think most didn't expect ray tracing to make the cut for next gen, just considering the cost. The GPUs capable of ray tracing that are available today are not cheap. But you have to think about it like this. PS5 will likely launch in late 2020. That's a lot of time from now here in early 2019 for the technology to mature and GPUs to become less and less expensive. Also, keep in mind that Sony will be mass producing this thing, which means they'll be able to order those GPUs in bulk, bringing the overall price way down. I remember before the PS4 was revealed, 8 gigs of RAM seemed impossible for a console. It was just way too expensive. And then Sony added 8 gigs of GDDR5 RAM and still managed to price the PS4 at $399. So when it comes to powerful ass tech in an affordable package, Sony just kinda makes it happen. But who cares about the logistics? Here at SSG Network, we're interested in one thing, and that's hype. They mentioned ray tracing in this article, and that means it's happening. So with ray tracing confirmed, what exactly can we expect from the next generation visually? Well, there are a few AAA PC games out there that support ray tracing, and like I said earlier, playing with ray tracing on feels like a generational leap in itself. I have some footage here of me playing Metro Exodus, which is considered by many to be the best looking game on the market today, and it does in fact take full advantage of ray tracing. Now, some of you might be asking, just what exactly is ray tracing? Well, it's hard to explain, but I'm going to do my best without getting super technical. Ray tracing is basically real lighting. It's what Pixar has been using to make their movies look as good as they do, and even they were only able to start using it with Monsters University in 2013. Now technology has reached the point where that very same tech can finally be used in real time with video games. Up until now, and again, I'm simplifying the process here, but up until now, video games have used what's been called baked lighting. They simulate what real lighting looks like, and what it would look like when light bounces off an object in the game. Obviously, devs have gotten really good at simulating real lighting, but it still takes a ton of fine tuning, especially for games with, say, real-time weather, where the sun is constantly moving and daylight levels are constantly changing. No matter how much fine tuning a game receives, devs are bound to miss something here or there, and it kind of breaks the illusion when something isn't exactly lit properly. With ray tracing, that's not an issue. It's real lighting, so every object in the game is lit like it would be in real life. This overall change to the way lighting works in video games is, again, kinda hard to explain or even show in video, but when you're playing a game that uses ray tracing for hours and hours, you could just tell the difference. I could just feel it in my soul or something. Here's a good example from Metro Exodus that might help you see the difference. Look specifically at these barrels here with ray tracing off. You can see them pretty clearly, but given the light sources in the game, being able to see them clearly doesn't really make much sense. Now, here's the same scene with ray tracing on. It's pretty much night and day. The light from the outside world just barely creeps into the room, so you could just barely see the barrels. Here's another example from Metro. Look how different the inside of this little shack looks when you have baked lighting on versus ray tracing. Remember, these are just still images from only 2 scenes. When you play a full game where the lighting is just perfect and resembles how lighting works in real life, it just feels totally different than what we're used to from current gen games. And that's really the best way I could describe it. Perhaps the impact of ray tracing is most clear when we see what it could do for older games. We all know how Minecraft looks normally, so when the modding god Sonic Ether released his ray tracing shader for the game, the internet pretty much melted down. It's legitimately unbelievable to see how ray tracing, in addition to some higher resolution textures, is able to transform Minecraft from this to this. From a blocky, pixelated PS1 looking game to the most beautiful game ever created by humans. Holy Christ, they need to make this official. My god. On that note, Quake 2 was originally released in 1997, but you wouldn't know it if you booted the game up with ray tracing on. A modder was able to add ray tracing to the game and the visuals were enhanced dramatically. Just look at the light bouncing off the projectile from my gun here, or how the various sources of light brighten this room before ray tracing and then after. It seems like Nvidia was so impressed by this mod that Quake 2 is now officially being re-released with ray traced visuals here in June 2019. If you think these look good, what happens when the entire industry starts developing games with ray tracing in mind? What happens when Naughty Dog or Rockstar put out their next big game, taking full advantage of ray tracing? What if we saw more old games re-released sporting an all-new aesthetic thanks to ray tracing? If Minecraft could look this good, how does something like GTA 5 look with proper ray tracing? The possibilities are just endless here. To sum things up, ray tracing is basically the future of real-time graphics in games. The fact that PS5 will take advantage of this tech means ray-traced lighting will define the visual style of the next generation. Perhaps best of all is the impact ray tracing would have on next-gen development cycles. Instead of devs having to spend a ton of time finding ways to bake lighting or other visual effects to make a game look as good as possible, they can implement ray tracing and it just works. All that work to make everything light up like it would in real life is already done. So even if these visuals here aren't exactly wowing you, I think everyone can appreciate faster dev cycles. Get hype. The next big announcement that promises to be an absolute game changer is the fact that PS5 will come packed with an SSD. Of course, this will be the first time SSDs have ever been included with a game console. Anyone who games on a PC knows just how much faster your life becomes when using an SSD. But PS5 will not come with just any SSD. It will supposedly be an extremely fast, custom SSD that is even faster than any solution currently available for PC. This is incredibly exciting to me because I feel like load times really started to get out of control on consoles this generation. Wired actually got to see a demo of the PS5's SSD in action. Load times on Spider-Man for PS4 Pro that took 15 seconds were reduced down to 0.8 seconds running on the PS5's SSD. It's almost unfathomable for a game as beautiful and vast as Spider-Man on PS4 to load this quickly. Unbelievable even. But then this footage leaked out of a Sony conference in Japan, and there you have it. 0.8 seconds of load times. Look at that. This is insane. It's like magic. I don't really have much more to say here. I think the results do all the talking. So I decided to make a couple of mock-ups here to illustrate what instantaneous load times would look like in some of my favorite current gen games, just to get an even better idea of how game-changing this truly is.
Start the battle. Pikachu. 3, 2, 1, go! Game. Start the battle. Mario. 3, 2, 1, go!
World Tournament Arena! Select the music! Get ready! Let's go!
Instantaneous load times become a reality in the next generation. Get hype. The third and final major point from this Wired article we need to talk about is backwards compatibility, and we might as well talk about the games I expect to see on PS5 here in this section of the video as well, because the two really go hand in hand. Backwards compatibility is always awesome to see, but it's something I didn't actually think would be included with the PS5 just due to the fact that remastered and cross-gen games sold super well this generation. So I'm super thankful that I'll be able to play my PS4 games on PS5, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to the full capabilities of backwards compatibility. First off, Microsoft pulled off some absolutely crazy stuff with their backwards compatibility efforts this generation. Even though you couldn't just pop in any 360 disc and play it on your Xbox One, the games that did find their way onto the backwards compatibility list basically received a free quasi-remaster, being rendered at higher resolutions than before on Xbox One X. I mean, I got one of my ultimate dream games, a 4K Red Dead Redemption 1 remaster, on Xbox One X. I never thought that would happen, yet here we are. Anyways, the question has to be asked. Will PS5's backwards compatibility work in a similar way, where the previous gen games are enhanced? Or will they run exactly as they would on PS4 Pro? This one's really hard to call, and honestly, I could see it going either way. The next question would be, what about PS3, and PS2, and PS1? Earlier this year, Sony registered a new patent that allows, quote, retrocompatibility of the hardware with previous consoles. Apparently, the system was developed by the legend himself, Mark Cerny, and would allow backwards compatibility of PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4 games on PS5. We don't really know anything else about how exactly this type of backwards compatibility would work. Would the PS5 actually accept and run PS1 discs? Or is this all digital and will players have to re-buy old games on the PlayStation Store? Again, we'll just have to wait and see. But no matter what the backwards compatibility situation is on PS5, I think one thing is for certain. Cross-gen games and game remasters will continue to be a thing. In fact, I predict the majority of PS5's launch lineup will be cross-gen releases. Believe it or not, the best-selling PS4 game and best-selling Xbox One game is a remastered version of a last-gen game. And it's not just GTA 5. Many last-gen games were remastered and re-released for current gen and have sold incredibly well. People are absolutely willing to double dip on a game if it's released on an all-new console with tons of enhanced features and graphics. Also, keep in mind, there are always entirely new players buying their very first game console. For them, they might not have even owned a PS3, so PS4 is the first place they'd ever played GTA 5, The Last of Us, or Skyrim. Of course, the same will apply for PS5. So basically what I'm saying is this. Instant classics like God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Spider-Man? Sure, if you own the PS4 version, you'll be able to pop that disc in and play it. But they will absolutely end up being re-released for next-gen consoles, with enhanced visuals and probably all the DLC thrown in as well. I mean, that load time tech demo is basically confirmation that we'll at least see an updated version of Spidey on PS5. Upcoming games that will close out this generation like Last of Us 2, Death Stranding, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Avengers Project, and Cyberpunk 2077 will all be coming to PS4. But again, do you really think these high-profile releases, most of which will have post-launch DLC as well, will only exist on hardware that is soon to be obsolete? Each of those games are going to have either simultaneous releases on both generations of consoles, or a next-gen version will closely follow the current-gen release. That's just the way the market works now, and honestly, I don't see them leaving all that money on the table. For all the people who do have a huge pile of PS4 games, I'm really hoping Sony at least offers an upgrade program, which is actually something they did with select games during the transition from PS3 to PS4. Only 5 games were supported, but you were actually able to insert your PS3 disc into your PS4 and then download the updated PS4 version for only $10. Sony, you gotta hook us up with that upgrade program on PS5. Come on, dude. Beyond cross-gen games and remasters, it's pretty tough to predict what games we'll see on PS5 this far out. First-party wise, I think it's safe to say that Santa Monica Studio and Guerrilla Games are each working on God of War 2 and Horizon 2 respectively. Insomniac is almost certainly in the early stages of development for Spider-Man 2, which is likely a PS5 exclusive. Amazingly enough, it's looking like Rockstar will miss the current gen entirely when it comes to a new Grand Theft Auto. Of course, I'm sure they're not too broken up about it considering the absolutely insane sales of GTA 5 on current gen consoles, but yeah, GTA 6 is looking like it will in fact be a PS5 game. How about some of the other third-party games? Well,
for your consideration.
Oh yeah, apparently Marvel vs. Capcom 4 and Street Fighter 6 are in the works for PS5. Yeah, that's what I've been told, so there's that. Just based on what we know from that Wired article, you have to be hyped for PS5. My jaw dropped when I learned that PS5 would be capable of ray tracing, and those load times, holy crap. PS5 hype and speculation is only going to get crazier as 2019 goes on. But wait, isn't someone missing? What about Microsoft and their next generation console? Microsoft is still coming to E3 2019 and has in fact announced that they have a 2-hour press conference planned. What is their role in this next gen story? Unlike Sony, Microsoft has stayed completely quiet when it comes to their next generation console. I think it's entirely possible we get our first official details on the new Xbox at E3 2019. But for now, all we have to go off of are a couple of leaks, and even the leaks at this point aren't exactly super detailed. First of all, Microsoft supposedly is going to come out of the gates next generation with 2 separate models. Kind of like the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X, except we don't have to wait until halfway through the generation for an upgrade. The One S equivalent promises to be an entry-level next-gen console and is codenamed Lockhart. Then we have the One X equivalent, which is codenamed Anaconda, and from the rumblings I'm hearing, this thing is going to be an absolute beast. I have it on good authority from some trustworthy leakers over at Reset Era that Microsoft is aiming to outperform the PS5 with the Xbox Anaconda. To me, this makes sense mainly because of all the marketing out there right now surrounding the Xbox One X. Look at the tagline when you Google Xbox One X, the world's most powerful console. I don't think Microsoft wants to relinquish that title as we transition over to the next generation. More importantly, I think Microsoft really took it to heart when the PS4 launched and outperformed the Xbox One in every way and for a lower price. They lost a ton of market share because of that, and it's been an uphill battle ever since. To kick off next gen, I think Microsoft is going to do everything in their power to have the most powerful console on the market. What does that mean exactly? Well, apparently both Sony and Microsoft will, at the very least, exceed the power of Google Stadia, which boasts a pretty impressive 10.7 teraflops of pure power. For reference, PS4 Pro sports 4.2 teraflops, while the Xbox One X rocks 6 teraflops. With the PS5 and Anaconda, expect the battle to take place in the 10 to 14 teraflop range. While the Anaconda may just beat out the PS5 when it comes to power, I have to imagine that means it'll be the most expensive console on the market too. I'm putting it out there right now. Anaconda will cost $499 at launch, and PS5 will manage to retain that magic number that has led Sony to so much success over the last decade. It'll launch at $399. I think the pressure is on Microsoft this E3 since Sony is sitting out. They need to end this generation with a bang and carry that momentum into the next. I expect to see a lot of cross-gen titles at their press conference. A new Cyberpunk or Avengers Project trailer may be marketed this year as an Xbox One X release, but we all know that those two games will likely be making their way to Anaconda as well. Then there's Microsoft's first-party efforts. Phil Spencer has confirmed we'll be seeing 14 first-party Xbox games at the press conference. All of those devs they've acquired over the last couple of years are likely hard at work on Anaconda games as we speak, and I think we'll get our first look at what some of them have been working on. Finally, the most important Xbox game of all, the mascot, the franchise everyone associates with the Xbox brand. That's right, we're gonna see Banjo 3. This is the year Rare is going to drop the Megaton, and to celebrate this momentous occasion, yes sir, Banjo will be released in Smash Ultimate as a playable DLC character. I'm telling you, this is the year. Banjo 3 on Xbox Anaconda. That game alone will sell 50 million copies at launch and win Microsoft the next generation. How's that for a prediction? Get hype. And I think that's going to wrap it up for today's video. If you like this video and want to see more E3 hype, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. The rumors and speculation regarding the next generation of consoles is only going to get crazier come E3 2019, and I'm hoping at the very least we get some more concrete details out of Microsoft's press conference. Even if new hardware isn't explicitly revealed, we are so late in the current generation cycle at this point that damn near every game we see this year running on a PS4 or Xbox One will find their way onto next-gen hardware as well. And much like Watch Dogs way back at E3 2012, some games might even be running on next-gen specs, even if we aren't explicitly told. And I think one of those games might be Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red's banger stole the show last year and promises to possibly be game of the show in 2019 as well. I was ready to make a new Road to E3 2019 video all about Cyberpunk, but good heavens, just look at the time. E3 is now just days away, so I think it makes more sense at this point to save that Cyberpunk video for after E3. At that point, I'll take a deep breath, take it all in, and then talk about all the new details we've learned about the game, and break down all that glorious new footage. E3 2019. Get hype. So until next time, enjoy E3, thanks so much for watching everyone, and take care.